Okay, in this video we're going to solve a system of equations by using an inverse matrix. So I'm going to show you the how applying an inverse works in this scenario, just like it does in any other function scenario. We have this matrix equation, AX equals to B, where A is the coefficient matrix, X is the solution, is the variable matrix, and B is the solution matrix. So if I was going to write the matrix equation here, it's going to be 5, 2, negative 3, 1, 3, negative 2, negative 3, 1, 4, times the variables x, y, z is equal to the solutions matrix, negative 6, 5, 3. So this is basically AX equals to B. Now, when you apply an inverse to something, what it basically does is undoes it. It undoes the operation. So I'm going to find the inverse matrix of A, and then I'm going to apply A inverse, which is the inverse matrix, to both sides of this equation. A inverse times A equals to X, times X is equal to A inverse times B. And so I'm applying the inverse matrix to both sides of this equation. And so when I do that, what I get on the left is this A inverse times A. It undoes it, and I basically get a 1. But in matrix world, I'll just say matrix world, we don't get a 1, we get what's called an identity matrix. So in this case, A is a 3 by 3. I, in matrix world, a 3 by 3 matrix, for the identity would be 1s on the diagonal. Oops, that's a 0. Zeros everywhere else. So for example, that's a 3 by 3 identity matrix. The identity number for multiplication is a 1. So essentially, if you think of this as a number times x, this would be a 1 times x. So the identity matrix times x would just give you back x. And x is equal to A inverse times B. And so when we multiply A inverse times the solution matrix, we get the solution to this system. So it's pretty straightforward. So all I'm going to do now with my calculator is enter A, the coefficient matrix, into my calculator. And I think I have it in here because I've been using the same system for a lot of different things I was showing you guys. So I'm going to go to second matrix and see what I have entered in A. When I hit A, it's going to come up with 5, 2, negative 3, 1, 3, negative 2, negative 3, 1, 4. So I already have A entered, and if you didn't, you would just go to second matrix and enter the size 3 by 3 and then enter each element in there. So now all I'm going to do to find the inverse of this matrix, and this is really phenomenal if you've ever had to do linear algebra and do something like this by hand. I'm going to go to centric matrix, select number 1, A is on the screen, and then I'm just going to hit the right where the blue matrix button is, X inverse. That's going to give me, when I press enter, this is going to be the inverse matrix for A, which usually takes a lot of time when you are doing this by hand, and there's a lot of room for error. So this is really terrific. We can do this so quickly. Now, for me, I'm going to ask my students to write down the inverse matrix, and I want fractions. I do not want all these decimals. So how you can turn this into fractions is you simply hit math, and you hit number 1, you select number 1, I want to turn it to fractions, and it's asking you, do you want me to do my answer into fraction? And you say yes, and so it converts this into fractions. So this is what you will need to write down for me, that x, the solution, x, y, z, is equal to A inverse B. So it's going to look like this. X, y, z is equal to A inverse times B, and this will be 7 over 22. Oh, I should have made this 1 over 22, 5 over 22, negative 1 over 4, 5 over 44, 1 over 4, negative 1 over 4, 7 over 44, 13 over 44. This is A inverse, and B, of course, is the solutions matrix, which is negative 6, 5, 3, and then we're gonna, you can multiply this by hand, but I'm gonna let you do it by your calculator. So now we have to enter this matrix. The size of this matrix is a 3 by 1. So go to second matrix, edit, and we want to go to number 2. I'm gonna edit B, and I've been using it for something else. Now I want to use it for inverse matrices, so I'll call out a 3 by 1, 3 by 1, and it's going to create that, and I'm going to say -6, 5, 3. So now in my calculator under number 2, which is matrix B, I have the solution matrix B. So now I'm going to go second quit. Now to solve this system, I'm going to multiply A inverse times B. So go to second matrix and select 1 and hit the inverse. And we already did this, but I was showing you how to find the inverse. And now I'm going to say times. You just hit the multiplication button times matrix B. So I'll say second matrix and I'll select 2. And now I'm going to hit enter. And this tells me this equals to this. So this tells me that X, Y, Z is equal to -1 to 1, or X is -1, Y is 2, and Z is 1, and that's my ordered triple.